Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I am going to dive on in and take a first look at Shadowdark from the Arcane library. This is written by Kelsey, Dionne. This hardcover is arriving in stores this month, following a very, very successful Kickstarter. You can pick this hardcover up for $59 or grab just the PDF alone for $29. So all that said, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Shadowdark. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this shrink wrap off. And I have to say, I have really been looking forward to checking this out because I have heard a lot of really good things about Shadowdark. And a few things I do want to mention before I jump on in. First of all, big thank you to the fine folks over at the Arcane library for providing me with this review copy. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. These days, it's very important that you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of Shadowdark, but I have avoided taking a peek at, quick starts or anything like that because I really wanted to be surprised when I jump on into this book. But once again, we're not going to look at each and every page, but I am going to give you a very good feel for what's inside this book as I learn more about Shadowdark as well. Something else to point out, please keep in mind this is not a review. You just saw me take the shrink wrap off of this book. This is a first look. This is a page through. I will have a detailed review in the not too distant future. In fact, the reality is later on tonight, I will be reading Shadowdark because, as I said, I have heard really good things about it. And if you follow the Gaming Gang, you know I like old school styled role-playing games. So let's jump on in. Right off the bat, it looks like we're going to have a lot of the information here that we would probably be looking at on a Game Master screen right here on the end pages. Let's see. Let's take a look. Yep, sure enough, that's exactly what it is. So that's kind of cool. How many pages do we have here? 325? Looks like it. 326. Well, the reality is these we could consider to be pages too. So it looks like we've got our different weapons, armor, difficulty class, morale, dying, distance, movement, spell focus. We'll take a look at the other goodies on the back. It is written by Kelsey, Dionne, and then we have a variety of artists here, and we don't have a ton, so I will actually read their names here, and I apologize right up front because I guarantee I'm going to butcher some of these. But we have Lucas Court, Brandish Gillum, Jesse Egan, Yuri Perkowski Domingos, Matt Morrow, Matt Ray, hey, that's an easy one, Mark Lyons, and Abdul Latif. So we've got all of their art credits and the page numbers as well. Very nice. I like that quite a bit. Okay, so we're going to get an introduction to Shadowdark, talk about the basics. Looks like we've got character information, then magic, and then we get a list of spells. Playing the game, we've got a game master section, random encounter tables. It looks like based on terrain. Our bestiary, and we've got our treasure book as well. So something that's important to keep in mind is that there is already a slew of additional content for Shadowdark. So this is not a situation where, oh, hey, it's a brand new game. The physical book is finally coming out, because I will point out the PDF has been out for a bit of time. But it's not a situation where you're sitting there like, wow, I really love this core book. I wish there was something else, because we see that a lot. And it's important to also note that not only is there a lot of content available right now from the Arcane library, there is also a lot of third-party content out there as well. Now, does that mean the third-party content is any good? I can't tell you. There is a lot of third-party content that rolls out there. Yes, I'm looking at you, 5e Dungeons and Dragons, which is utter trash. Could be hit or miss, but we're not here to talk about third-party content. We're here to take a look at Shadowdark. And right off the bat, digging the artwork. What is Shadowdark? Shadowdark role-playing game is a fantasy adventure game where you and your companions delve into buried ruins, lost cities, spider-infested forests, and even fearsome dragon lairs in search of gold and glory. The Shadowdark is any place where danger and darkness hold sway. It clutches ancient secrets and dusty treasures in its rotting claws, daring fortune seekers to tempt their fates. With your adventuring companions at your side, you confront the Shadowdark's sinister traps, formidable magics, and ruthless monsters. If you survive, you'll bring back untold riches plucked from the jaws of death itself. And before long, you'll hear the Shadowdark's call once again. So what defines this game? Speed, danger, and simplicity. Magic is perilous. I definitely like that. I am a sword and sorcery fan. I like role-playing games where everybody doesn't have access to magic and magic items, and where magic is dangerous for the magic user as well. So it says that Shadowdark RPG is rules light and intuitive. It encourages quick decisions rather than hunting through the rule book for answers. In this game, yes, this is actually something that I am aware of, a torch only holds back the pressing darkness for 1 hour of real-world time. There isn't a moment to waste when the flames are burning low. As far as I understand, the various different species in the game do not possess any sort of dark vision, infravision, anything like that. So darkness is dangerous. That's one of the aspects of the old school role-playing games that I've always loved. And that is, and it's not something that we see a lot of modern fantasy role-playing games really focus on. And that is for those characters who cannot see in the dark, in a dungeon setting or in a cavern or anything like that, where you don't have any sort of natural light. If you don't have any light, it should be terrifying. Not, oh, well, we'll make our way. We'll make do without any light. No. Okay, the basics. So you've got your characters, describe an action. On your turn, describe an action you want to do. For example, you could say you're going to shoot your bow at a troll. Got movement, rounds. Essentially, in a round, everybody gets to take a turn, starting with the GM and going clockwise. I would take a guess. We're probably talking about always on initiative, which is fine with me. I think that's cool. I like that in index card role playing. I think that's pretty cool. So you're going to use 4-sided dice, 6-sided dice, 8-sided dice, 10-sided dice, 12-sided dice, and 20-sided dice. No percentile dice. So it's describing multiples. We do have advantage and disadvantage. And I'll tell you right now, I can see that the presentation of this book is very concise, very to the point. I always like that, especially when we're looking at kind of an old school Renaissance sort of title. Now, keep in mind, this is not a retro clone. This is not a D&D retro clone. This is not a fantasy heartbreaker, anything like that. This is its own thing, which utilizes probably a lot of mechanics that we have seen elsewhere, but all together in one package and with an old school vibe. So here we got our stats: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. And we've got modifiers, -4 to +4. So a bigger swing as far as our attribute modifiers go. So we do have 3 to 18 as far as our range. We've got our checks. Rolling a d20. Looks like you're going to roll higher. Yep. Then a difficulty class.
So that's something that many role players out there are going to grasp immediately. So we got our hit points and says, what next? You could play a whole game with just these basics. There you go. All right, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start skipping pages here. So we've got our ancestries, dwarf, elf, goblin, half-orc, halfling, human, and what sets them apart. So we got our classes. So we got our fighter class. So we got a breakdown of what weapons they can use, what armor they can use, how many hit points do they have per level, and they have a special ability. They're a hauler, so you can add your constitution modifier, if positive, to your gear slots. So we are seeing gear slots as far as encumbrance. Nice, okay. We got weapon mastery. Choose one type of weapon, such as long swords. You gain +1 to attack and damage with that weapon type. In addition, add half your level to these rolls, round down. And then we've got grit. Choose strength or dexterity. You have advantage on checks of that type to overcome an opposing force, such as kicking open a stuck door or slipping free of rusty chains. So it appears we do not have saves. Just a guess. It's possible we do, but I sort of have the feeling, taking a look at that we will not have saves as far as save versus dragon breath or save versus poison. So I would take a guess that maybe even any sort of save is just going to be considered a test for you to roll and meet or exceed the difficulty challenge. So we got our priest telling us about the spells known. So we do have spell slots, it does appear. Got our wizards. Is that a goblin wizard? I'll tell you what, the artwork is impressive. I'm liking the artwork. So we also got different deities. So we do have alignment. So we have law, chaos, and neutrality. That's going back to OD&D. Languages, starting gear. So we got our armor class. Armor class is 10 plus your dexterity modifier. Of course, if you're wearing armor, that's going to change that as crawling kit. A crawling kit costs 7 gold pieces. It uses 7 gear slots and contains the following items: backpack, flint and steel, torch, rations. Actually, it's got a couple of torches, 3 rations, 10 iron spikes. Yes, you need to be familiar with the OSR to really understand what spikes are good for and not just keeping doors closed. Got a grappling hook and 60 feet of rope. And then we also have, if you were just buying these separate, if you didn't want to have the dungeon crawling kit. So we have the different weapons. So we have different types. Well, basically melee or ranged, it appears. What range is it? What kind of damage? And we get some properties here as well. So we have finesse weapons, versatile weapons, two-handed, weapons that need to be loaded. We get a table for character names, which the funniest part in fantasy role-playing games that I seem to encounter is the thing that takes people the longest time in character creation. Doesn't matter if it's quick or slow, it's always coming up with a name. Sometimes I just want to tell players, hey, come up with the name first, and then we can go from there. So before you get to our location that we're playing, already have a name picked out. So we've got level advancement. So experience points looks like we've got very small numbers of experience points that are awarded. To go from first to second level, you need 10. Go from 9th to 10th, looks like you need 100, and it appears that we're going to max out at 10th level. Okay, so here's our magic. What you call wizardry, I call faith. But in either case, it's our dedication that fuels it. Urga, half-orc priest, to Krieg, human wizard. Talking about casting spells. So it looks as if you are going to need to succeed in a test in order to cast spells. Maybe not all spells, but I am seeing critical success, critical failure as far as your spell casting. All right, so right here it says to cast a wizard spell you know. Make a spell casting check by rolling your d20 plus your intelligence modifier. And to successfully cast, you have to roll 10 plus the spell's tier. It looks like we have 5 tiers, maybe? Scrolls and wands. So I'm sure a lot of people out there checking this out, if they are familiar with the old school Renaissance, maybe they play various different old school Renaissance role-playing games like Old School Essentials or Swords and Wizardry or even OD&D or AD&D, might be wondering, why would they look to pick this up? And from what I can see so far, and once again, remember, this is the first time I've had an opportunity to take a look at this, and I am liking what I see. I don't think that this is actually probably designed to replace your favorite OSR role-playing game. It's probably not necessarily aimed at grognards out there. Probably not. I'm getting a feeling just by kind of taking a peek at the core mechanics for action resolution and the spell casting. I get the feeling that this is kind of aimed at people who are either relatively newcomers to the hobby, but are kind of interested in what's that whole OSR routine, or maybe even those out there who play, say, 5e and are looking for something that's going to be a little less crunchy, but still fairly robust. And we got a little bookmark here. And I will be the first to admit, folks out there who play 5e and maybe are looking for a different flavor of fantasy role-playing games don't necessarily gravitate towards retro clones. People who tend to play 5e D&D don't necessarily segue into like a Swords and Wizardry, especially if they've started out with 5e D&D and maybe that's the only role-playing game that they play, and it's that same sort of high fantasy, very difficult for the player characters to take a dirt nap sort of game. This is looking very, very appealing as far as maybe looking to run more of the old school sort of vibe, but not getting into the old school mechanics of play. Just taking a look through. This looks like this is our Game Master section here. I also appreciate the fact that this is very to the point. Now, that may not necessarily be good for people who aren't familiar with role-playing games in general. But once again, I don't get the feeling that this is really aimed at newcomers to the hobby. So it looks like we're going to get into some tables. So we've got some rumors, NPC names. There we go. Overland hex maps. So it appears we've got a lot of tables in here, which is kind of an OSR thing. Keep that in mind. So here we've got the encounters based on area and terrain. So here we've got like artisan districts. As an example, a woman in a cowled cloak pulls down wanted posters. An arrogant warrior on a warhorse tries to kick a PC aside. Cave encounters. A Blue Tusk Clan goblin shaman and 2d8 goblins rampage. An old Chimera makes its nest among a pile of bones. These are just here to kind of inspire the game master. So it looks like we've got quite a few pages devoted to these encounters. Slums. A dying man in a gutter begs to impart a dire secret. The tombs. I think next up, we're probably going to hit our bestiary, and that is what we've got. Our monsters. So let's see what we've got as far as monster attributes, because one of the things I talk about when discussing not only fantasy role-playing games, but just about any genre of role-playing game, is that the thing that makes NPCs and monsters stand out aren't attributes. It's what makes them different from one another. What makes them stand out? What makes them interesting? What makes them unique as far as parlaying with them or engaging in combat with them? So here we got our armor class. Yeah, okay. Hit points, their attacks. It says most monsters can make 1 or 2 attacks per turn. Some can make more. Talks about bonuses in damage, movement, stat modifiers, alignment, spell casting if monsters can cast spells, if they're adapted to the dark. So we have a monster generator. It says make it weird. Adventurers fear the unknown. Keep monsters unfamiliar by adding mutations to them. Mutations can inspire new abilities or attacks. For example, you might describe a spider with wings. That would be pretty creepy. You might determine that a monster with tentacles can restrain creatures. You can roll up to 3 mutations per monster if you're just looking to kind of put things together. Apprentice, a cloaked magician with a thin, freshly bound spell book. Okay, then we get our block here. And Beguile is an intelligent spell magic bolt. So these are pretty bare boned. I will say that. That's cool. A demon. Here we've got our dragons. So I'll tell you, these stat blocks are right, once again, just concise, to the point. See, the one thing that I like to see in bestiaries is a focus on tactics. I've said this umpteen times. There is a reason why the monsters know what they're doing is so popular with game masters for 5e D&D. And its sequel is very popular as well. And it's because there isn't enough information about how to utilize monsters and creatures and even NPCs to make them unique. Now, something just kind of flipping through here, taking a look at this, that I would maybe even float out there. And now I'll be the first to admit, I have not had an opportunity to actually take a peek at this, but I've heard really, really good things about it, is you might consider utilizing something like the Monster Overhaul from Skirples, because I've heard that's really, really well done as far as being short and to the point, but also giving game masters information about how do you use these things. So it looks like we've got quite a lot here in our bestiary. Multiple entries per page. Hell, we got 4 entries right here. Okay, now we get into our treasure. And one aspect of the old school Renaissance as far as fantasy games with the treasure that I really like is we don't tend to have a lot of treasure that's just, oh, it's a +1 dagger. I always like the old school adventures that have magic items that might do a specific sort of thing. They're not all encompassing various different magic items that actually have a boon and a bane. I love that. Talk about it all the time. there is an OSR adventure, and unfortunately, off the top of my head, I don't remember the title. But one of the magic items is a sword, which if you're wearing the sword, you can tell if somebody's lying because the sword tells you that they're lying. Only thing is, if you're wearing that sword, you cannot lie. Love that. And I really dig the whole kind of double-edged sword aspect of a lot of OSR magic items. So here we've got like item personality, item flaws. So here we're looking at sentient magic items. We've got a few different magic items. Tell you what, just kind of taking a look through this, it appears as if this would be very, very easy to port over other OSR material to it. So if you were looking to run, say, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons modules from back in the day, it appears that it would be probably really easy to convert those adventures over to Shadowdark. I'll tell you one thing, this is jam-packed with content. I'm digging that. Right, then we get our Join the Dark community for Shadowdark, where to find adventures and content. As I mentioned before, the Arcane library has a lot of goodies out there for Shadowdark already. There are 2 quick start PDFs. I think one is like player aimed and the other is game master aimed. I can't tell you if they're free or if they're pay what you want, but they are available. I wouldn't be shocked if they're just simply free. And these quick starts are not 10, 15 pages. I think they're clocking in at over 60 pages each. So if you are curious about Shadowdark, and we're just taking a first look here, once again, this is not a review, but if you are curious about Shadowdark and you don't want to take the plunge of either picking up the hardcover or the PDF, by all means, I would certainly recommend giving a peek at those quick start PDFs. All right, so that is a look inside Shadowdark from the Arcane library. Of course, I am going to have a review of Shadowdark in the not too distant future because, as I mentioned, I'm actually going to start reading this tonight because I am really, really curious about this. And once again, I have heard really good things about Shadowdark from folks out there in the industry who aren't shills. So that is an important thing. Anyway, like I said, I will have a review of Shadowdark in the not too distant future. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell because it'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this first look, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube as I bring you the latest in tabletop gaming news. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com, which is full of a whole lot of other tabletop gaming news, reviews, and plenty of other content that you are not going to find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And until I see you next time, here's hoping all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.